Hi, this is Lee and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. It's that time again, OS updates, and this video is going to look at some of the most noticeable features in iOS and iPadOS 26. Now some of you may be thinking, hang on, version 26? We're just coming from version 18. Well, Apple have decided to take a unified approach with the naming convention for all of the operating systems, where the version number now reflects the year of the release season. So as this is the 2025-2026 release season, we are on iPadOS and iOS 26. And it's the same for macOS, tvOS, visionOS, and watchOS too. Now, lots of the features covered today are present on all of the OSs. So just because I'm showing a feature on iPhone doesn't mean it's exclusive to that device. If it is, I'll be sure to mention it. Now, as far as which devices are able to run iOS and iPadOS 26, well, there's a link in the show description below that should help you out. There's certainly a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Okay, we have to kick off by taking a look at the change to both iOS 26 and iOS 26 that is going to hit you straight away when you install, and that's liquid glass. It's a design change that impacts almost everything that you see on each device, and you're going to see it all the way through this video. It's the biggest design change since iOS 7 way back in 2013. Now, both of these devices are running the latest OS version. And on the iPad, I have the icons here set to their default color scheme with the iPadOS 26 background there. Looks very similar to what we're used to, whereas the iPhone, well, it has these clear icons, letting the wallpaper seep through them, which can look quite something. Now, I'll change the iPad to have the same style as the iPhone, so I'll long press, then come up and tap Edit. And already you can see the liquid glass effect of this menu here with the background just showing through. And as I move the cursor here, it's a nice fluid effect, and I'll select Customize from here. This gives us a small window at the bottom to set the icon type. Well, I'll come down and select Clear, and you can see that they've changed. Now under Clear, we've also got different styles here. So this is the light setting, but the dark setting for when you're in dark mode, I think is quite fetching. I love how the larger size widgets look with this style. I'm just going to long press again and go into Customize once more. And just show you, you can set it to auto as well so that it mimics the system settings for light or dark mode. And if you want to have the large icons on show, rather than having the name of the application below, then you can tap this button here to activate them. Okay, let's take a look at how liquid glass looks in our applications. And we'll use Safari as an example. I'll open it on the iPad first of all. And we can see at the top here, these circular buttons mimicking that of the Vision Pro. I personally really like these. I think this all looks tidier and smoother. And you'll find also that on Safari here, when you start to scroll down the page, the buttons disappear and the address bar shrinks, allowing more space for the text to show. Then when you come back up to the top, it reappears. Now this is even more noticeable on the iPhone, where if I open Safari here, you'll see I've got those round buttons again, but they seem to be very much overlaid over the page, as I can see the page seeping through once more. And if I start to scroll, that looks much smaller. And I think this is implemented really well on this device, which is of course smaller, so real estate is an issue. Now let's stay on the iPhone for a bit. And version 26 also wants to try and minimize what's on screen. So lots of things are hidden behind buttons. If I tap on these three dots, we have actions here, and you can see the glass effect on show there once more. And now let's select all tabs here, where on previous versions of iOS, you would see all of your tab groups listed below, or as many as can fit on the screen anyway. Now you can only see two. We've got the private one and the local one for your device. So you may think that you need to long press to see the others, but no, this shows some more actions that we can carry out. No, to see the other groups, it's actually much easier. Just swipe across and you'll see the other buttons move out to allow you to see where you're swiping. So there's my banking tab group, Then swipe again for my social media one, and the bar contracts again. Then if I come back to the tabs open on this device, you can see it automatically contracts down once more. So iOS and iPadOS 26 is trying to make more items accessible from the display without necessarily overwhelming you with buttons. Now, another great example of this is the camera app. So this is my kitchen, and at the bottom it looks like I only have photo and video modes available. However, as I switch between them, you can just temporarily see more modes there, and that's because, like we just saw with the tab groups, we can swipe across to see more. So they are there, they're just hidden. Now let's come across to video, because once you are in a mode, you can long press, and there are some buttons here that are relevant to that mode that you're in. So they're contextual, which is great, meaning if I come across to photo and long press, we have some photo-centric options here. Okay, I'll tap away, come to video, and this is great up here because here I can tap and change the recording options. So let's make this a 4K video and perhaps give it a super frame rate of 120. And the screen is flashing just a tiny bit with each press, giving you confirmation of your change. I think this whole setup is really nice. There's a lot less cruft on the screen, but there are no shortage of options for me to access. Then the last example I'll specifically show of the liquid glass design is in messages here. If I tap edit, I can see the images of the pinned avatars there just coming through a tiny bit. So it's a menu, but it looks very different. Then over here, we have a filter button, which has a lot more options hidden below. And we're going to cover some of these new features later, but lots of options below a translucent button. And you can see that too with the search bar down here, just a little bit of the text below poking through. Now, I'm not going to point out all of the liquid glass effects as we go through. You'll see them for yourself. They're very prevalent in certain applications like photos and music, for example. And they certainly won't be for all of you, but this design change is one of the biggest features of iOS 26. And you're going to see it on all supported Apple devices. So that includes Mac, watchOS, tvOS, and visionOS as well. Okay, let's spend a few minutes looking at some of the changes that are native to the iPad now. And there are some big ones that may well help those who are looking for a reason to drop the Mac and use the iPad full time. So I've got Safari open here, and you'll see the cursor looks like a Mac cursor, which is much more accurate for clicking. And if I come up to the top here, we've got a menu bar now, which is amazing, and we'll take a look at that shortly. But to the left of that, our brightly coloured friends from the Mac are here. So the traffic lights that allow us to control the window. So we can close, we can minimise, and we can exit full screen mode here. So if I click that, the window shrinks, and now I can move this window around as though I'm sitting on a Mac. If I come down to the bottom right-hand corner, I can click to resize this. So this means that if I come down and open another application, so Reader here, well, I can have more than one window open at once. So I'll resize this, I'll move it, and you'll see that like macOS, I can leave it hanging over the edge of the desktop there as well. Okay, let's keep it in the middle, and I'm going to open up another application, so Overcast here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize this and just move it to this position over here. And this is so that I can show you if I close the application, which I can now do with the traffic lights, then I'll press Command and Space to open Spotlight and open the app. We can see it remembers that position. So windowing on iPad, fantastic. On some older iPads, you are going to be limited to having 4 open application windows, but on the newer Apple Silicon models, you can have far more. Now, you saw earlier that another improvement we have on iPadOS is the menu bar. And this menu bar is available to third-party applications as well, as you can see here with Overcast. Now, admittedly, as I click along these here, there isn't very much that is available through the menu bar on Overcast currently, whereas if I come over here and activate Safari, you'll see we have some options that are very similar to the Mac version. And the glass overlay over the web page looks really good. So coming across here and checking the different menus, we can see it also shows the keyboard shortcuts for different actions as well. I think this is a massive improvement. And when you combine this with the windowing features that have now come to iPadOS, you can seriously consider using this as more of a daily device over the Mac, should that be something that you're thinking of doing. Now, to further improve the parity between iPadOS and macOS, we now have Expose on the iPad as well. So if you're working with multiple windows, you need an easy way to see them all so that you can switch between them. Well, if you physically swipe up from the bottom of the iPad with your finger, and I'm doing this slowly, you can see the open windows that you currently have, and you can select a new one just by clicking. I'll just do that again. I'll slowly swipe up with my finger, and you do have to do it slowly because I find if I do it too quickly, then some nonsense can soon take place. But having Expose on iPad here is a nice addition. Now, another smaller but welcome update is allowing folders to be added to the dock. So I've got a folder here with applications that I want to verify that I still want, or those that I want to configure appropriately on this device. Well, now I can drag these into the dock, and it's accessible without having to remember which page I stored this folder on. This has been a long time coming, and I'm glad to see that it's here. Okay, the last feature that I want to cover that I think iPadOS really benefits from is in the Files app. So if you're going to use the iPad more, then the Files application is going to be your friend. So let's just pick a random folder here. You can see that we are in column view here. So I see a column for each level of the folder structure. Well, if I come up here and tap, I can come into list view. And now if I come back, a cool thing that I can do now is resize these columns. And also from this list view, I can expand these folders here. Now, I wasn't able to do this before, but now if I want to see what's in a folder, I can see it in line. So Files is getting more like Finder, and the macOS similarities don't stop there. If I expand this Downloads folder, I've got a PDF sitting in here. Well, if I right click, I've got a context menu like I do in Finder on macOS, and an option here is to open with a certain application. And just look at that top application. It's Preview. So Preview is now on iPadOS. It's not quite as fully featured as it is on macOS, but it's certainly got enough. And I'm going to be doing a separate tip video on Preview for iOS and iPadOS shortly. So we're not going to cover it here. I just wanted to show you that it's available. And also, if you don't want to open it with Preview, well, you can choose a different application here instead. Or you can preview it with Quick Look. Well, the goodies don't stop there. If I go to Get Info, just like on macOS, we have an Always Open With option here. And if I click, I can always open this file with a certain application. So if I change it to Notability here, you'll see that doesn't have to apply just to this file. I can elect to always open all PDF files with this app instead. So the lines between iPadOS and macOS, you can see, are becoming increasingly blurred. The two systems are getting closer than ever.